Hello my loyal companions and welcome to this episode of our How to Land series, where I take you to the various landing locations around Verdansk and give you the tips you need to be confident, whether you're choosing to land there at the start or whether you end up there as the game progresses. In this episode I'm going to take you to the king landing location in Verdansk, Atlas Superstore, where you can get your fair share of groceries, apparel and high kill games if you know how to play it right. And that's my job to show you right here in this video. I'm going to show you the different entrances, choke points, and then give you 5 tips to maximize your potential. So let's jump in and get started with how to land at Superstore. Superstore is the hot drop of Warzone, and it's where the best players go to test themselves against one another. It allows for a combination of skill, positioning and superior gunplay to beat your enemies and reap the rewards of Superstore, which is amazing cash loot and the chance to give yourself some momentum right off the bat of the game. This is not the place for new players to drop. This is where the more advanced players, or those players who want to get to that more advanced status, go. I know that when I started landing Superstore a bit more often, my KD and my skill went up massively, and it is a great place when you get a bit more familiar with the pistols and when you're confident with any gun you can pick up off the ground to go and test yourself against these better players and these more confident players and get there yourself. It is a very high risk, high reward scenario and is definitely worth pursuing if you are looking to get better at the game. It builds upon things like decisiveness, positioning and general gunplay, which are key when you're playing a game like Warzone. The luck element of Superstore is definitely there, but the better you are as a player, the less that has an impact. Let's have a little look at the overview of Superstore on the map. It's a fairly central location, meaning it's quite consistent to land at because you're almost always in zone or right on the cusp of zone, meaning you're not being pushed out by the storm. This is useful because it allows you to keep up momentum, not having to worry about that pushing you out. It means you can focus on getting your kills, on getting your loot, getting your loadouts, and then you can move around the map with a bit of momentum. As you can see, I've highlighted the buy stations on here because buy stations are really important to keep in mind. I've shown all the local ones in different areas around the map, but again, plan your routes according to these. It is super important because the worst thing that can happen is you land Superstore, you get like 5, 6, 7 kills, and then you go get a loadout and there's none nearby. You start crossing across quite open spaces towards a buy station and get beamed by someone camping in a building. That's not ideal, so you do want to plan ahead of that before you land. Also included here, the gas station to the west and the electronics store to the east, as they do play a vital role in Superstore and they will be part of my guide here. As for the main building itself, there are 5 different locations you can land, and I'll go over the positives and negatives of all of these. The first one is the roof. Now, the positive of the roof is that you have the high ground. As I spoke about in my downtown video, high ground is really important and can be really useful to survey the area and kind of stay a bit safe. The problem with the roof is that it is quite an open space and the loot there isn't always fantastic. I mean, you're kind of playing a bit more chance than you would in other locations, and there's not a lot of money on the roof. So you will have to move in at some point, by which point other people have already moved in and started looting. I do think the roof is a good place to land immediately if you're then going to jump down as soon as you get a gun, push into the other entrances of Superstore and play for your kills that way. I wouldn't spend extended amount of periods on the roof. I just don't think it's worth it. The first location I'm going to go over is the back window. Now this is quite an iconic location, as you see a lot of other content creators land there. I'll go over the positives and negatives. The positive of it is that when you go straight through and you go to the window, you end up on a shelving unit, and that gives you a little bit high ground to play around, and there's some decent cover there. It also has good access route because it is quite open, so you can see quite far and you can kind of assess your area a little bit more. The negative of it though is that you're very central into the Superstore area. You can get shot from your left or from your right, and people who move quickly and effectively through Superstore will come at you as soon as you land. It's also, because of how iconic it is, some people always are making sure they look. Even though you have the high ground, it's not that people aren't looking up there. They know about it. It is very well documented, and they will be looking at you. Overall, it is a good location to land for sure. Personally, it is situational for me. If I don't see a lot of people landing there, I might, but I have my other favourite spots here, and you have to find yours. Another location to land is the side door / side balconies located to the west. This is a multi-level sort of area, so there's a lot of height to play around, and it can be a little bit difficult. There's a lot of in and outs, and this is where some really kind of tight cornered rooms are. That you have to learn to play around. This is maybe the harder location to land in my opinion, given just how complex it is, and it will take a little bit of time to land. Again, you can always do the situation where you land on the roof and drop down those multi-levels, just clearing them as you go. That would be my advice. The positives of this is the fact that you can play around the height so well. You can run around the building, you can go through windows, out windows, and really outposition your enemies if you know how to play it well. The con of this is the flip side, is that you can get outpositioned on really easily, and you have to be really aware of your surroundings and know that part of the map. It actually has great vantage points into Superstore. There's, on two different sides, big windows that look straight into it. People don't look at those windows enough, so they can be really good points for you. There's also some one-way access rooms that can be really good to hide in if you have a most wanted or if you're a bounty. Not my personal playstyle, but each to their own, I guess. The fourth location to land at is the front door. Now these tend to be quite uncontested, but again they have the same disadvantage as the back window. They put you very central. You have to look left, you have to look right, and you have to look in front of you to get your grip of your surroundings, and people can come from all angles. Personally, I do land here sometimes. There is a ledge that you can land on. Again, grab a gun, then drop down into it and sort of push through that way. I think the key with all of these Superstore locations is to realise that they are hot. There will always be people around you, and you've got to be really aware. Some places you can sort of control a bit more than others, and for me the back window and the front doors are slightly harder to control given all the angles you have to look. The one positive of it though actually is how good cover there is at this front door. There's some cashier desks that you can hide behind and move around with that can be pretty good to manoeuvre around. The final location you can drop in Superstore is the garages to the east, and this is my favourite. It's noticeable because of its big garage doors and also a few side doors. When landing, you can go straight through those doors, or you can land on the roof or the slight balcony above the doors and then push in from there. But the one thing I will always do is that when I get a gun, I will then drop down and go through those garage doors and clear it really methodically. That's sort of the way you have to play Superstore, is really careful and really methodical thinking, as well as being really confident with your gunplay. The positives of this location is how much, again, you can control the height with those balconies. Not a lot of people sort of land on that specific side. And there's some good railings and another window you can get in to sort of look into Superstore before you jump down. The negative of this is twofold. One, you can actually be shot from the electronics store if you hang about too long and they get a gun and mount up. The other one is that there's a lot of metal railings around, so people hear your audio really well. Which is not always what you want. So that's why in my specific route I jump onto the balcony and jump off straight through the doors. That way I sort of alleviate both of those. Electronics door doesn't have an angle on me. There's always a gun that I like generally there, and I can then push in without making too much noise. So there are your main entrances into the main Superstore complex. As I said, I also about gas station and electronics store, and I'll start with electronics store. So this is the building just off of Superstore. That is very close, and if you get a good enough gun like an LMG or even some ARs, you can mount up and shoot people on the sides really effectively. The sort of positive of landing here, particularly for newer players, is that you can sort of be in Superstore, be near Superstore, be ready to get those kills without immediately being in the action. You can stop, loot up a little bit, grab an armor plate, grab a gun, grab some ammo, and then look to push in. You can beam people from the roof, or if you're really confident, you can then, once you're set up, move into Superstore behind people. This is a good location. I do land here sometimes. For me, I do just prefer to be straight in the action, though I feel confident enough in my gunplay to be doing that. Gas station is the other place you can land, and it is a fairly good spot. You'll be able to find a bit of money, maybe even enough for a UAV, so if the buy station is there, you can then grab a UAV and then push into Superstore. It is also a great location just to hold people as they come out of Superstore. That tends to be the initial rotation, especially if it's the only buy station nearby. People will grab their money, and the winners of Superstore will then push out to you. You can hold them there. It's a slower play style, but if you want to get a few kills, it is good. Or likewise, similar to the electronic store, you can just loot up, grab your stuff, get a bit more confident, and then push in through those back windows and back balconies. This is definitely somewhere you can land. It's not somewhere I personally land, but can be effective. You just have to be careful that as you're crossing across that main road, you don't get beamed from people on the back window already. If they spot you, you know, you've got no cover as you cross that. You think there's one bus shelter, and that is not good enough cover for you. Actually moving through Superstore can be a little bit difficult and will take some time to learn. My best recommendation is that you actually jump on either a custom game or just some normal multiplayer in Atlas Superstore map. The layout is very, very similar. You can't access some of the outside things, you can't access the roof, but generally it's very similar and can just get you a bit more comfortable with the layout of the map. I would definitely recommend this if you're new or if you're just really dedicated to learning it. Spend that time, spend 20 minutes or so in a custom game, just walk around, get a feel for it, and sort of understand how the map is played a little bit more. Your focus when you're in Superstore is mainly on kills, that's why you would land there, but also when you get those kills is to reap the rewards and get the money from it. There's loads of loot on the ground, whether it be armor plates, decent weapons, but mainly cash piles. You can get enough for loadouts and UAVs. You can really set yourself up for the start of the game when landing Superstore and when playing effectively and when basically getting all the kills you can out of it. It sets you up with a good kill number to move into the rest of the game and also sets you up with the money to move forward with high momentum. After Superstore, so after you've got your loadout either from gas station or from the front, you then have to sort of assess your situation on the map. You can push out to loads of different access routes, as I've said. There's lots of different places that you can go, whether it be airport, storage town, twins, or wherever. You can even grab a car that is situated just outside, put a trophy on it, and drive wherever you want. This is where your UAVs come in handy, or whether you can grab a bounty and do it from there. If you are landing Superstore, my sort of assumption is that you're an aggressive player, so you probably will go for those UAVs and those bounties to then push out and get some more kills. As for endgame in Superstore, this is a little bit more of a difficult one because it rarely ends near Superstore or where Superstore is a part of it. Your goal is to go to the roof. Now the problem with the roof is that there are 3 different access points. One of them is from garages, the other one is from your side door, and the last one is actually from the window. All of them have ladders that can go up onto the roof, and because of how open it is, it can be quite hard to hold. It's a very big roof, so if you have less than 3 people, you can't cover every different access point easily. So you do have to keep that in mind, but if your circle is there and you've got the circle to your back, you can cover a bit more effectively. You want to scan the area, but again, there's lots of high roofs around there that will look over you, and you're likely to get sniped or shot at. So it's very situational. Personally, I would try and avoid ever being on Superstore roof endgame where possible. It can be effective sometimes, but you really have to play it by ear. There is no endgame formula to Superstore. As for moving through Superstore, everything I've shown you before still applies if you're towards the end game or towards the mid game. What you will find is that there are very few people in Superstore come mid game. Even moving through end game, people avoid it. It's not a great place. Getting to it and then getting away from it, there's a lot of open ground that you can get shot from. People tend to play around the storage, around the airport, more than actually through Superstore, and that would be my recommendation to you as well. Now that we've got an overview of Superstore, I want to go over my 5 tips of how you should play it effectively to maximize your potential and maximize your kills. So let's jump into those. The first of these is going to be play your audio, and what I mean by that is to take those extra few seconds to stop, have a listen, and calculate where your enemies are based on their very loud footsteps. If you don't have a headset in Warzone, you're at a disadvantage anyway, and that is just amplified when you play in Superstore. You'll see if you watch any of my gameplays or if you come see my live stream that I do this a lot, and that is what really helped me in Superstore. After the initial rush and all the shooting's gone on, that's when you can play your audio, listen for gunshots, listen for footsteps, and then move accordingly. I actually, to help myself in this situation and not have this happen to me, whenever I see a dead silence in Superstore, I pick it up and I pop it and I run around like a madman. I do this so that my footsteps are silent and all I can hear are the enemy footsteps and enemy gunfire. Using your minimap is also key for this, to find out where enemies are, particularly the up arrows and down arrows to see whether they're on your level or not. This is something you can play around. But tip number 1, play your audio. Tip number 2 may seem a bit contrary to tip number 1, but it's actually to move fast. Now, whilst you should take those few seconds to stop and listen carefully, you should be moving through Superstore with purpose. If you're confident at playing your audio, you'll know whether you're safe or not, and you should always be listening. So I move fast, I get my stuff, I get my kills, and then I move on. If you're sneaking around corners, better players will just beam you, and that's the case. Better players land Superstore. You can't play scared and hiding in corners or in those windows. Better players will know how to push you, they'll use dead silence to their advantage, they'll play the audio, and they will beat you. This tip actually applies to a lot more places than just Superstore. I would say most places you want to be playing fast, but it improves as you get better as a player. So don't worry if you are struggling to move through confidently. It is all about confidence. This whole game is about confidence. Your gunplay is one thing. You need to have a solid foundation, but if you're confident in taking your shots and taking your fights, your gunplay is just better anyway. Tip number 3 is to always expect more people. Now, when I say this, it's because even if you think you're clear, even if you think you've killed everybody in Superstore, you probably haven't. People will rotate in from electronics store, they'll rotate in from gas station, they'll probably fly in back after you killed them the first time because they're angry at you. You need to always expect more people. The only time I would say you're ever clear is if you have a UAV up, and then you can sort of see in a wide area around you. Even heartbeat sensors I wouldn't trust. You need to play as if you're playing a 1v4 scenario or more. You know, even if you're solos, duos, trios, or quads, you need to be in a position where you think you could kill as many people running at you at one time as possible. And that is the mindset that Superstore players land at. Even if they have teammates right behind them, they need to be able to pull off these big plays and win the game for their teams and win these fights. Feeding into that, however, is tip number 4, which is take the time to armor up. This kind of also goes in conjunction with tip 1, which is play the audio. I'll explain how this works. When you watch me play, I'll often take time to armor up, get into cover after I've had a fight, armor up, and listen really carefully for any more enemies. If I hear an enemy really close, I'll stop armoring and go fight them. But if I have the time to armor up, I will take it. And the reason for this is actually feeding back into tip 3, which is always expecting more people, always expecting to be fighting multiple people, even if you have your squad with you. And that includes armoring up so you can be ready for those situations. Whilst you should be moving fast and really high energy, you do need to make sure that you are prepared for these fights. It only takes a few seconds to armor up. Take the time, do it, listen to your audio while you're doing it, and then continue moving fast. These all work in conjunction with one another, but as you go there and as you experience it more, you'll find the right balance. My 5th and final tip is something I don't think a lot of players do at all, and that is when you land at Superstore, do not value your life. Now, Battle Royales are quite intense because there is a value to your life, right? You have 1 life, maybe 2 if you win your gulag, 3 if your teammates buy you in, but there's not a multiplayer. You don't just infinitely respawn. There is consequences to your actions, and there is value to your life. When you're playing Superstore, particularly when you're first landing there, as this video is intended to give you an overview of, don't value your life. Expect to die. Expect to learn from these situations. It kind of applies to all locations, but really this one, because it's the hot drop, is where the best players go and where you have to really test yourself against them. So don't value your life too much, because you're probably going to die a lot of times. And you will actually enjoy the game and learn quicker if you stop valuing your life as much. That doesn't mean run around like with your pistol out or your fists out and try and punch people. What I mean is use the tips I've given you, but if you do die, don't worry, it happens, and just win gulag and go land somewhere else. So don't value your life too much, don't get stressed, it's okay. Superstore is meant to be difficult, but you will learn it through practice. Well then guys, you made it to the end of the video, and I want to thank you for watching. Hopefully you've taken something away from it, whether it be a bit more of an overview of how Superstore works and some different entrances, some different ways to play those entrances, or whether it be from those tips I've given you, which really did help me play better in Superstore. It is a place you're just going to have to land and practice and give up your life, but you will get better at it, and when you do, the potential for great games is endless. So thank you for tuning in, and if you haven't seen it yet, my last video is how to land downtown, my personal favourite landing spot in Verdansk, so go check that out. And for this video, if you are liking the content, please drop a like, subscribe, and all my socials are linked below so you can follow me there. The big one though guys is my Twitch. I stream every Tuesday, Thursday and Sunday. And I put out a notice on Twitter just beforehand so you guys know when I'm going live. This is where you can see me put those tips into practice. It's all well and good me giving you this advice on this YouTube video, but if you want to see it live, interact with me, ask me questions, or pick my landing spot for me so that I can show you different locations and things, please come follow me on twitch.tv/RazDarkGaming. Thanks guys, I'll see you in the next video.